right, everybody. Welcome to our first Jagged Alliance 3 dev stream. We are super happy to be here and engaging with you for the first time. I have my lovely guest, Pavel. Pavel, welcome.
Hey, Brad.
How you doing today?
Very good. Very excited. This is the first time I'm doing something like this, so let's get it going.
A little nervous, maybe a little bit.
Just a little bit.
Nah, cool as a
We'll see how it
cool as
goes.
a cucumber. No, you're good.
Yeah.
Well, everyone, we are really excited to be here. We're going to be doing quite a few of these, so hopefully we'll get a chance to get to know each other over these different streams. We'll have a nice, fun show. We're going to go through our most recent dev diary that we posted. We're going to chat about the game. We're going to answer questions, and it should be a good time just to hang out and get to know each other. Feel free to post and chat, and we'll try to take them as we go. If you haven't checked out the dev diary, our dev diaries, I don't know if I have the link on the screen or maybe it'll be there later, are at our community site, community.jaggedalliance.com. Yeah, I know, Depot Park. I'm a little bit pixelated. It just started like 15 minutes ago, so maybe it's just internet traffic. It's probably related to my cough. Maybe the internet and my cough have the same problem going on. I don't know. But community.jaggedalliance.com is where we post all of our dev diaries, and you can go and read them there, and we're going to focus in on those today. So before we get into the dev diary, though, Pavel, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and what your role is in the project?
Sure thing. So I'm a producer at Haemimont Games that's working on Jagged Alliance 3. And yeah, it's a fun ride. I've been since the pre-production of the game, and it's come a long way, I would say. I'm really pumped that we've got to this point where we can share more with the community.
Yeah, it's we've been on this journey together for quite a while, and it was super exciting when we finally were able to announce the game and talk about it, wear these awesome shirts out in public, and now we get to finally interact with the community in a more live fashion, which is super exciting. Um, Pavel's, yeah, Z Greens. Well, thank you. Yeah, if you notice any audio, stuff, we'll tweak that as we go. So glad you post that. We'll get them fixed up. I do have one really cool thing to let all of you know. So, what do you all think about the Jagged Alliance T-shirt? If you like them, I will tell you that on our next stream, which, well, Scoop, you can't buy them, but we do plan to give away a few of these on our next stream. Not this one. We're gonna go ahead and put some stuff on them for the giveaway on next stream, which will probably be in a few weeks. But keep an eye on our social, plug into our social, and if you're really interested in getting a Jagged Alliance 3 T-shirt, it even has the cool like a Haemimont logo in the back. We're gonna do a giveaway on the next stream for all of you, and I'll mention that a couple times for the people that show up as we go. So, usually on these streams, we would talk about kind of on the first stream, we talk about pillars and whatnot, but we've already had the pillars dev diary posted. We're going to actually jump into the topic that we had for this week's dev diary. So if you haven't had a chance to read it, dev diary number 4 was posted this week on Monday, and it's about mercenary progression. And as everyone knows, Jagged Alliance 3 is all about the mercenaries and their personalities and how they grow and change and evolve and their interactions with each other. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today. And just to kind of start off, maybe, Pavel, you can give everyone, and I know a lot of people know what the mercenaries are, but give them a high-level, information about what we mean when we say mercs.
So, for the people who don't know what Jagged Alliance is, basically you're a commander of a mercenary squad that's doing a job. So the first thing you need to do is actually build your team, and what you need to do is hire those mercs. We do have a fairly big roster of characters that you can hire, and each of them has his own or her own unique personality and skill set that they can bring to the game, which gives a lot of opportunities just to have different ways to approach all of the campaign. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love the each of the mercs. There's quite a lot of unique personalities with them. It's something that was really important to us from Jagged Alliance 1 and 2 that we wanted to reference and pull in that kind of rich cast of characters. And I think that personality is something that we also want to capture in the way they play, and how they go. But we're going to talk about some of that uniqueness a little bit later on. Like in the beginning, we want to focus on the big focus points on the dev diary and what we kind of were explaining there. And one of the things that I saw a lot of people excited about was that we're actually starting with a classless system for the mercenaries, from what I understand.
Yes, that's something that we took a deliberate decision on because Having a classless system actually gives more opportunity to the player. Plus, it's fairly specific to the Jagged Alliance franchise. We didn't want to railroad a mercenary into being, let's say, only a medic and then just developing into a better medic throughout the campaign. But actually, you can use him or her in very different ways. It doesn't mean that they're bad or good. They're not bad or good. Like, it depends on their stats, but it doesn't mean that you only need to play them in one way. You can actually experiment a fair bit with those characters.
I like Oscar Bravo Romeo makes a good point in chat. He or she says, and most of those mercs have no class anyways. So having a
Yeah.
classless system makes sense. I love that. That's a good one. Um, Pat Vogel actually asked a question, and I'm gonna throw this to you. So he wants to know if Grizzly and Steroid are in Jagged Alliance 3.
Am I allowed to say confirm or
I
yes?
mean,
I think
I know
yeah,
we've definitely
they
shown
are. We
Steroid. So
showed
Steroid,
Grizzly, and yeah, so we showed them both. Yeah, they are there.
yeah. If you watch, I think actually in our very first trailer, there's a scene I think where Steroid like slides down and pulls out a gun. So I think he's there. Yeah, absolutely. So when it comes to this classless system, though, it's not really um, it was something that we talked about quite a bit because we wanted to bring back that Jagged Alliance feel, and that's a
Mhm.
big part of it. So why is it so important with classlessness to have to have that kind of Jagged Alliance sense?
But we didn't want to have, let's say, you only have this character and he's a sniper. This character is a mercenary. It's because there's the focus on these characters. You don't build a character up from scratch like the ones that you hire. There is something about the IMP characters there, but that's a topic for a different day. But you actually have these characters that have their rich background and their already skills that are known from previous Jagged Alliance games, and they can change. So it didn't make sense. Like it was more like we didn't want them to be specialists, but we wanted to leave that to the player and how they interact with them.
You
Um,
know,
yeah,
I'm gonna jump in and say, Calbert, who says we may not sell them in the future? I'm not gonna say yes or no to that, but we're early, right? We're just starting to get to know each other. So in the beginning, we might as well give away some free swag, and then if the demand's high, you never know how that stuff goes. Um, Ask and you may receive. We'll see how that progresses. So I do think it's interesting because the part of that Jagged Alliance feel is kind of the simulation, the aspect, the kind of experimentation and kind of organic feel. And I think that having a lot more flexibility and choice in how you train a merc and how you grow them
mhm.
can do a lot to kind of solidify that.
Plus, we didn't want, sorry to jump in, but we didn't want to have situations in where, like, you are, let's say, Jagged Alliance is known for tough situations. We don't want you to have a squad in the middle of the jungle and one of your mercenaries has a wound and you can't do a healed wound operation and get a pop-up of, let's say, hey, you don't have a medic, so you can't do that. That would be, that would suck for me, personally. So, what you do is you would manage to do that operation, but it wouldn't be like as good or as fast. So that's the flexibility that we're talking about, not limiting the possibilities that you can do in the game.
Yeah. Oh, look, we are taking questions. Right now, we're kind of focused on talking about mercs and how they work and how they progress. But we'll take questions as we can and kind of jump them in. So feel free to ask. We are going to have a time at the very end, the last 10 or 15 minutes, where we're going to have both Pavel and a guest that's going to show up in about 10 or 15 minutes as well, and we'll take questions together. So that'll be cool. I think a big part of it also is we didn't want any mercenary to have be a jack of all trades. We wanted you to make choices and have a way to grow them, but we didn't want them to be completely generalized. And that's I think
Yeah.
part of that. No artificial restrictions. How you use them, how you grow them.
Hmm.
That's how they evolve over time.
Yeah, pretty
So
much.
So I think let's dive a little bit deeper. And if you haven't read the dev diary, we're going to go through some of this briefly, but there's a lot more information and details there. Now, one of the ways that we drive these different elements are through a stats system, and the stats system is pretty similar to Jagged Alliance 1 and 2, from what I understand.
Yes, it's still 10 different stats going on a scale from 1 to 100, which is not common nowadays, you can say, but it's something fairly characteristic to Jagged Alliance, and it provides a lot of um, opportunities to fine tweak what you want to do. So it is exactly that. It's taking from the old game and a little bit tweaked so that it fits the new system and makes it a little bit balanced. So yeah.
And there's 10 different stats, which I think is very similar to previous ones. Maybe you can mention a couple of them and we could just talk about them in detail for a minute.
Sure, like you have the most like obvious one out there, which is marksmanship. Like it makes you a better shot, which is very important in a game that's about shooting or melee combat, but mostly shooting. You have wisdom, which is I think a little bit more of a not so well known, maybe not exactly not so well known, but it's underrated, you would say, because it allows your character to learn faster and gain experience faster, which can lead to a very different playstyle and a you could say a lower stat character actually progressing faster. And the final one, let's go with leadership, because it's something that helps you out in the strategic gameplay in the game. You can train militia to guard sectors, or you can also train your mercs. And the better the leadership skill of the teacher, it's gonna be the better for teaching more efficiently the student. So it's that I would go with those two, including wisdom and leadership. Also, open up some conversation options, which is something that's not it shouldn't be forgotten. Let's say.
Right. Yeah, I feel like and by the way, I have a producer in the background that's helping support the stream. Producer Alex, did you notice about the tags? Someone noticed that our tags for the stream are from like in a previous stream. We still have another thing up there, so we want to update those if we can. Thank you. Awesome. Yeah, before I expand on that, I think I wanted to grab a quick question from the stream. Oleg was asking, any info on Jagged Alliance 3 story will be serious or fun, like Jag 2 with hilarious quotes like "Elliot, you idiot," and buying black flowers from the boss lady. Yeah, so I think that you're going to be pleasantly surprised with the storytelling of Jagged Alliance 3. We're trying to definitely bring in the humor and the seriousness. I think they kind of juxtapose each other because you have a lot of levity and a lot of dynamics between the characters and they interact. You've seen some of those quotes from our trailers, and we're going to be showing a lot more as we start releasing more content. But there's also some pretty serious moments that happen too. So I think you're going to get both elements of that in the organic storytelling. So on the stat side, I noticed that I'm sure people have picked up that there's quite a few stat names that are similar, but we actually are. I mean, each of the stats have their own kind of purpose in Jagged Alliance 3, so they're not quite the exact same as they were in the previous games.
Yeah, there are tweaks, like I mentioned a little bit earlier, that help us just bring those stats into the Jagged Alliance free game, help out with balance, and also because we have returning characters for previous editions, they do communicate a little bit what happened during the time between the two titles, because it's after Jagged Alliance 2, but it's some time, a little bit of time has passed, and those are people with lives. So what happened to them, we'll see.
Now that kind of segues into a conversation or a question that Spine Duke had was asking about how stats can change and evolve over time. So the stats aren't static; they do have ways to be improved. Maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the different ways that you can improve and grow stats as you play throughout the experience.
So stats can improve in several ways. One of them is through experience. The second one is through actual training, mercs in different ways. And the third one is from items that can help you train your mercs, and they're not general. They increase a specific stat. For instance, if you're in more gunfights and you actually shoot in an action situation, you will increase your marksmanship stat. But as Boyan wrote in the dev diary, that I also encourage you to go and read, it's not like you can shoot bottles around. He had a really good example. Not shoot bottles around out of combat and expect for you to gain marksmanship. So it's doing stuff in the actual game that can help you improve. Training mercs is also a valid way to gain experience. As I said, you have a trainer merc and you have a student merc, and the bigger the difference between those two, the more efficient and the more faster you can gain experience. But at the top, it's harder, to earn those really important last couple of stats. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it's something that is an interesting balancing act on the different ways that you can get mercs. Like there's ways that you can find, and without giving away too much, like items that can improve a stat for a particular merc, and those are somewhat limited, so you have to kind of figure out who you're going to use them on. And then it's a trade-off when you're trying to figure out how you train someone, because in Jagged Alliance as a franchise, it's always about balancing how much money you have coming in and how much money you have coming out and what your mercs are doing. So you can't just sit there and spend infinite time training all your mercs up for different stats based on, because it takes two mercs, right? It takes a person to train and the person being trained, and that's a double cost. So I like that kind of thing. You may want to once take like an expert marksman and improve marksmanship on a character that has a certain build that really needs that improvement to make it work. But there's a trade-off there that you're negotiating when it comes to how you're managing your budgets, so to speak, and
Yeah.
how much things cost. So it's kind of cool. I do want to grab the question that Jimmy Lee 4 Moriker asked, which is, will we need ammo for the guns? It's not infinite like in XCOM. So absolutely, we're not talking about combat too much in this stream. We'll do a combat stream later on, but absolutely, the weapons have ammo. There's different ammo types. Those ammo types are things that you can buy or craft or find. There's different ways that you find them, and you have to manage your ammo, both when you want to use really good ones versus other ones. So there's different dynamics here that you're going to have to take into consideration as you're playing. It's not it's a system in and of itself. So that'll be cool.
That's gonna be a
So
really interesting combat stream. Yeah.
yeah, the combat stream's gonna be great. So I one last question. I mean, what are your ways? Are you someone that likes to grow your stats a lot through training other mercs? Do you just like to, try different things as you play and see how it grows? Like, what's your play style when it comes to how you grow your stats?
What I learned is that if I want to start out with more expensive mercs, I can use them for training some others, but there's only so much money that goes around, so you're starting out with a smaller squad. What I would say is just invest in a merc with some leadership, at least some leadership in the beginning. I've been in hard situations where I had to train some militia, and there was like the highest skill I had was below 10 from 100. And it took forever, or I just scrapped that whole idea. So, yeah, there are some hard times, and always take someone who is with at least high-ish marksmanship, because hey, someone's got to shoot at the other guy, right?
Yeah, you're 100% right when it comes to the satellite view gameplay has its own elements that you have to deal with when it comes to scouting and recruiting, militia and even I also especially if you find a really valuable gun, having a good merc with the ability to repair and that stat high up so you can get some good success chance on that is super helpful. So there's a lot of interesting choices there. It all just depends on what you like to do and what you don't like to do. Training those
Maybe I
militia does
can
make the invasions a little bit, or the aggressive enemies a little bit easier to deal with. That's for sure.
Maybe I can summarize it this way. I'm a little bit of a maximalist. I like to go over everywhere and everything. And if there's mines to disarm and I don't bring someone with a explosive skill, it just it gets me a little bit right here. So yeah.
Yeah. As long as they actually can successfully disarm it, sometimes that also doesn't go well. Because if there's one thing that Jag is good at, it's surprising you with moments that then you have to deal with. Well, Pavel, it's been great having you on here. We're gonna swap over to Boyan for a second. We're gonna have you back though for the Q&A section, so this is not the last you're gonna see of Pavel.
All right.
Awesome. So everyone, we're gonna bring our next guest on and continue our. Oh, we'll see. Arrow. It's Boyan with a Y, with a Y today, not with an I. I had to learn that when I first started working with Haemimont that we have two different Boyans. There's one with an I and one with a Y, and you have to kind of use the Y or I moniker in order to figure out which one. Today we have with the Y. We'll get Boyan with the I on here eventually, though. No, it's all good. Boyan, welcome to the stream.
Hey everyone. Hey.
It's your is this your first time doing a live stream? It's not.
No,
Actually,
we
'cause you
did one at
one.
Gamescom, yeah.
Hey, look at that. So we're old vets at this point.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Boyan, how are you doing today? How are you excited about being on camera again?
Yeah, definitely excited. Have been waiting for the dev streams for quite a while now, and hoping to get the fans excited and tell them a bit more about the game in general.
So, what is your? I know we have some information there on the screen, but tell us a little bit about yourself and your role in the project.
So I'm the creative director of Jagged Alliance 3. I am probably one of the biggest fans in the company of the Jagged Alliance franchise. I played Jagged Alliance ever since it came out in 1992, at least Jagged Alliance 2. I've played a lot of Jagged Alliance 1 as well, but Jagged Alliance 2 is my favorite game. I try to play it every year. I do roughly an entire playthrough every year, but at times I stop at Meduna because Meduna is a bit of a slog to get through and take Didrian out. But well, that's definitely a fun time of the year for me.
By the way, Cordenor, we are capturing the questions. I have a document here on one of my other screens that has all the questions captured. So at the end, I'm going to pull questions from the forums. I have my sheet of questions here, and I'll also grab some from the stream. So I'm trying to grab ones as I can as we go, but obviously we also want to keep the stream moving, so it's kind of a balancing act. But I have all your questions captured by our wonderful production team in the background, and we'll cycle back through them and go through as many as we can as we have time. So yes, on it. Yeah, I think something that I really appreciate about that, Boyan, is that, and I know that, when we first met Ian Curry and he got involved, he noticed it too. That fandom, that having someone or having people on the team that really know the game and the franchise. I think if you're, how to say it this way, you play the game every year, Jagged Alliance 2. You're trying to implant that type of replayability and that kind of style into Jagged Alliance 3. And I think that's a really cool thing, one. And two, I also think it connects to how we've developed the Merc progression systems. They're designed to create that level of replayability and that level of dynamicness in them.
Yeah, definitely. So what was definitely one of the greatest things about Jagged Alliance was it allowed you to play your own way. You could go anywhere on the map and you could develop the characters in different ways you wanted to do. You could get, for example, Fox, which she's a great medic, but she also started with 100 dexterity, which was like, wow, that's the stat is maxed already at the start. And you train her through some training and you can make her the best stout character, melee stout character in Jagged Alliance 2. That's an interesting build to try, and I've tried it in Jagged Alliance 2, and we wanted to capture that in the characters as well for Jagged Alliance 3. So the whole idea is that you can get a character and you can try to play around and think of what strategies you want to use that character for,
Yeah.
and you can make it your own.
Absolutely. I do want to take a couple comments. I know we want to get back to the Merc discussion, but there's some interesting conversation going on in chat that I want to cue into. First off, Molivius, I'm also really good at slaughtering Twitch names, so I apologize. Yeah, the game's going to be fully voiced. We've put a lot of effort into the voice casting. We have a wonderful partner that's helping us with all of the video recording and casting, and I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. If voice is something that people are really interested in the actors, maybe we can do a stream with someone from the voice team and maybe talk about how we're getting the voices and kind of how we do that, because it is a really cool topic and I think some people are really excited about that. So if that's something people would be interested in, yeah, voice stream. I've done it before on another project and I think it went really well. So maybe we can talk to our partners and see if we can do that if that's something that you guys would like. Another thing that I think Arrow455 mentioned, which is that Jagged Alliance 2, he or she said, was very close to simulation with no rails or limitations and could kill every NPC, etc. It's something that we actually debated about really on in development because we wanted to capture that. And I remember at one point there was a debate, I will say, about the ability to kill or not kill NPCs and the ramifications of making that decision. And I think Boyan, you and I were part of that. Of different, we all had different opinions on what was the way to do it. I think we ended up on yes, you can pull out your gun and do whatever you want, right? We were trying to, for the most part, for the most part, and it was we wanted to add that freedom in as much as we could while also not breaking the game, because obviously the game is a lot bigger than Jagged Alliance 2 when it comes to features and complexity. But that's really important to us, that freedom and lack of rails, and it goes into how we built the characters with no classless, with classless systems and whatnot.
Yeah, you definitely can affect the world in different ways, and there are a lot of NPCs you can take down. There's very interesting story ramifications because of that, but there are some limitations because we wanted to show the characters that are giving you your mission, what your purpose in the country of Grand Chien is on the screen, which was something that Jagged Alliance didn't manage to do well enough, in my opinion. Like, you only had emails from Enrico, who was saying, "This is your task," and he's never in the world, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get back to the mercs. So we were talking with Pavel about the stat system and the 10 different stats and how they can progress. That's kind of where we left off. But I think it's important to talk about progression as well. So we have a leveling system for the mercs that's kind of part of how they progress too. And maybe you can talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so there's definitely this RPG element in the game. You can your mercs can level up, they gain experience. As they gain experience, they'll actually gain stats slowly throughout the leveling process. They gain stats based on what they use. So if you disarm a bomb, they can gain explosive stat. If you use the merc to shoot a lot of sniper rifles with aiming, they'll get dexterity, which affects aiming, and that increases their stats. But once they level up and increase their level, that gives them a perk point, and they can actually gain perks. The level itself is also an important statistic. Actually, in Jagged Alliance, it too also had a very big significance in the different formulas for actions. And in Jagged Alliance 3, it is actually important as well. So a mercenary at 10th level, which is the maximum level, is better by definition than a mercenary at level 1. They get a bit more action points, so they get a bit of an edge in combat, they are more accurate, especially against enemies and mercenaries that are lower level. But
Yeah, I feel like it's really interesting because it's also reflected in how expensive mercs are to recruit and what tier they've fallen into. So if you end up hiring a merc that's a more veteran merc, you're going to notice their default level is higher. What's also kind of interesting is if you use a merc a lot and they level up a lot, and then you let them off your squad and go hire them again, that cost has gone up because now they're more veterans. So there's a lot of back and forth with the leveling system and just how that ties into the way and how expensive your squads are to maintain. So let's talk a little bit about the perk system. So there's you get a perk point as you're leveling up, and you can put those into different areas from what I understand. So what are the different types of perks, and how do those kind of what are restrictions or ways that you can get them?
Yeah. So perks, you get one edge every time you level up, and they are tied to different stats. Actually, the 5 main stats, which are more of a physical attributes like agility, dexterity, strength, health. Health is a stat. So there are 5 tiers of 5 perk lines, and there are perks associated with each line. With each line having 3 tiers of perks, there's a bronze, silver, and gold perk. Each tier of perks requires a different value of the stat. So they go 70, 80, 90. If you have 90 strength, you'll be able to get the strongest strength perk. And they are
Yeah.
a bit, gold perks are a bit better than bronze tier perks, but they are not by definition just numeric increments of what the perks do.
Yeah, I feel like what's interesting about the perk system is they're not they can allow different types of play styles and different types of ways you approach different situations, which I think is really cool. And it cross pollinates with the stat system. So you may have a merc that you want to get a certain perk with, but they're a little bit lower on the stat than you need. And that's where you go, okay, I'm going to go and train this merc with another merc that has that stat higher to get it up so I can then get the perk that I want to then unlock the combinations to get the playstyle I want. There's a lot of that kind of I mean, not that you can't be fluid with it, you certainly can, but there is definitely some of that meta planning on how I want to do this run or this playthrough and what kind of different ways I want to combine mercs, and their stats and their perks. What are some of your favorite perks that you have in the game that you may want to talk about?
So definitely, I think if perks has different tactical approaches you can go throughout the game. There are perks that synergize well, and one of my favorite builds is if I get a mercenary that plays a lot with pistols and handguns because they're quite mobile. I usually try to build him to be able to shoot at the hands or the feet of the opponents, which hinder them, and I use them to be quite mobile, set up flanking attacks. I usually take another merc which gets a perk that increases damage against flanked enemies, and those two mercenaries usually synergize quite well. So, like a hobbler character which can cripple the enemy, and a marksman character that can take advantage of a flanked enemy. That's a very good strategy and definitely one of my favorites.
Yeah, we also talk in the dev diary about hit and run and frog leaping perks as well. And you can read some of the details on that in the dev diary and kind of understand how those interplay. I think it's really interesting whether you're a running gunner or a heavy weapons person, or you want to play them a little more stealth or some combination of all of those. If you want to be someone that is a really powerful medic, but you can sneak up without being seen and use that to move around the space easier. We have melee mechanics that tie into all these different systems kind of connect into the perks in the way that you want to amplify the unique ways that you play with those different characters, which I think is super, super fun. Now, we talked about, and actually, it's funny because I need to scroll up on my chat. Someone was asking this question about who was it? Yeah, it was Spine Duke. Spine Duke was asking about can mercs get upset and refuse to work with you? And the answer is yes, that can definitely happen. It even happens in the very beginning of the game to a certain degree because some mercs just don't want to work with you in the beginning because you don't know who you are and you haven't proven anything. But some of this also ties into what we call traits. Not all of it, but some of it ties into traits. And traits are how we add a little more of that uniqueness into each merc's personality and fears and emotional distress and all the other crazy things that they have. So maybe you can tell us a little more about how traits and what these things are, and that'll help answer some of Spine Duke's question a little bit.
Traits are characteristics of the mercs that are there from the start. They usually they can have some combat impact. For example, their specialty, like their night combat specialist or a heavy weapons specialist. That's something that's actually a legacy from Jagged Alliance.
Boyan, you don't even realize. So Jimmy Lee 4 was just asking, is it possible to do night ops attacking in the nighttime? The answer is yes. And there are actually look how good you are. You didn't even realize you were answering a question. Perfect, please. Yes, the night
Yeah.
perks, or the night traits.
So those are quite good for just picking a team that synergizes well. But there's also some stuff that just adds a bit more character. Like there are some characters that are spiritual, and what that does is it just always adds a very small, very tiny chance that they'll hit even with a hopeless attack. There's just God is on their side, or the gods, whatever they believe.
Or Haemimont's
And
on their side.
yeah. So this adds a very tiny personal characteristic to the characters and makes the game a bit more fun. There's also 3 traits that are spread out throughout the characters, but are important in conversations, which is the psycho trait, the negotiator, and the scoundrel trait, which open up new options in conversations and allow for some funny scenes in the game. As well, they add some small non-combat related benefits, like the negotiator allows you to train militia faster.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting because these things are a little bit emergent, right? Like we definitely give you information on how to make choices around the traits of the different mercs, but some of them are things that you just kind of discover as you're playing, and some of them can evolve with how they manifest themselves. I know I was just watching some video capture recently of the of Fidel getting annoyed because he has, I don't know what his exact trait set is, but I know that some of the traits make him really he's kind of bloodthirsty, right? He wants to see people, he wants combat. And if you end up avoiding combat a lot or being a little too pacifist in your play style, he'll not want to work with you anymore. He's like, I'm bored. Like, why am I going to sit there and walk around and not do anything? I'm here to, to break heads. And that level of dynamicism where you you can read in between the lines of how these different traits can affect the characters, but a lot of it is something you just have to discover while you play. It's part of the fun of just watching the world evolve around you and figuring out how that happens.
Yeah, and Fidel is quite funny character, and he's a psycho, and actually the psychos can have a kind of berserk moment in combat. They can decide, I'm gonna kill that guy, and they can take control and just go shooting full auto with the assault rifle at the enemy, and don't care about the safety or cover or anything like that. They just want to kill that guy.
Yeah, I know someone was asking. I'm trying to figure out who it was. Let's see. I have to check both of my lists. Someone was asking. Yeah, Spine Duke. Man, Spine Duke, you just like nail the questions that are on point here. Is there combat stress in the game, like losing their shit when things get really bad? And the answer is yes. There is a way that things can go. People can get a little bit freaked out, and that can happen on the enemies and your side. And some of those things tie to traits on the characters, right? Different situations they don't like to be in, or ways that they decide to get more panicky. So it's a very multi-dimensional system when it comes to how it interacts with hiring or who they work well with, or conversation opportunities, or satellite view mechanics, or combat. Like all these different elements kind of work together to make these things feel hopefully very simulaic and simulated and very organic. So I want to move on though, because we're getting close to the questions time, and I want to get through the last couple topics here. There's also this thing called talents, and talents are the super uniques, I would say. Like they're the things that really add the most uniqueness to each individual merc. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what talents are and what the idea is behind. Well, I can't explain what the idea was, but what the idea was behind them.
Yeah, so talents are the unique flavor of each mercenary. It's something that they can do and nobody else can do. They are not all powerful, like they're not super defining, but they add a special way to play each character. For example, Fidel can throw 2 grenades at the same time. That's something that you can see even in the trailer, in the cinematic trailer, and that creates a very fun opportunity. It's not all powerful because it's not like doing the damage twice in the full area. They are a bit spread out, so you have to position the throw very well to make use of it. And there are great characters that can throw grenades better than Fidel in terms of like range, because Fidel doesn't have a lot of strength. But it does add this unique way of playing around with him. It's a different way of thinking of how to approach combats, and that's what we're going with the talents.
Yeah, and that's another thing that I know we talked about a lot during development here, which is, how far we wanted to take the uniqueness of each merc versus how much we wanted to allow players to do what they want, or to kind of customize them to their play style. And I remember, years ago discussing it was with you and the other Boyan, and there were a lot of different ideas that we threw around for how we could accomplish this, from having no special unique feature to each merc and allowing it to be something more that the player can determine or discover, to having a lot of individualization to each merc. I feel like this combination of general and specific really does allow each merc to feel unique, and have a play style or a thing that makes them really special, while also giving the player a lot of control and a lot of ways to evolve it. What's another? I know we talked about Fidel a lot, and it's easy to talk about him because he's just entertaining. But what's another of your favorite talents out there for another merc that you really like?
I have 2 examples which I think are quite interesting. One is actually
Okay.
talked in the dev diary, which is MD. MD is a medic. He's young and eager. He's a bit of a rookie. So this is represented in him
He
getting
cannot shoot broads
spontaneously.
out of a barn, by the way.
Yeah,
Like his aim
but
is
you can
awful.
train him. Yeah, you can
Yeah,
train him, and he
no,
can learn quite fast.
I often hire him because I really like him as a medic, but it's like he runs around with that like starter pistol, and you're just like, she can't shoot anything, and I'm like, dude, come on, like he's right there. Sorry, it's
And
just
because he's very eager, and that's something that actually comes out quite a lot in his voice lines, he
that's
can
true.
get spontaneously inspired when you have high morale, and that gives him additional action points, and he becomes able to do a lot more in a single turn. And that's a very nice bonus and allows for quite a diverse way to play him, especially if you train him up a bit more and he's able actually to shoot and hit something. But
Mm.
even if you have a tough situation and you want to save somebody with decent bandage, uh, getting these extra action points is quite useful. So that's example one.
Yep.
My other one of my other favorite mercenaries is Omrin, who has so we have an Overwatch mechanic in the game. You can set up pointed to fire against a cone of enemies with your assault rifle or with your handgun. And what's special about Omri is his Overwatch is actually in 360 degrees, so he overwatches the entire area. He has eyes on the back of his head. And this changes a lot of how you set up Overwatches, and you can do a very specific build with perks and leveling up that's focused on overwatching, and that creates a very unique playstyle with Omri.
Yeah, I feel like you know, it's also a thing because if you're using, there are perks that are about Overwatch that are in there. So if you have Omerin and you want to really leverage that mechanic to the biggest degree, you may actually want to invest in those perks to allow those synergies to come out.
Yep. And it's not that you can build him in another way. I've seen builds with Omri which are entirely melee based because he has good stats for melee attacks, and that don't take into account a lot of his talent. But that not to say that it goes to waste because you have 2 weapon slots, you can switch and use his other weapon slot, but you can definitely build him in different ways.
Yeah. I'm seeing the comment. There's and Spine Duke's right. I feel like there's going to be unlimited questions about combat. I've seen questions about melee, about mortars, you know, RPGs. There's a lot about the grenade mechanics, the healing. So I feel like when we finally do the combat dev stream, we're gonna maybe have to take that one a little bit longer because my goodness, we're gonna get a lot of questions. You definitely feel that. Yeah. THQ Nordic, the guy behind the scenes, is like, we better get some coffee for a 3-hour combat dev stream because goodness gracious. But it's good though. It means that people are interested. So, oh, come on,
And I'm
Corgan.
up for a 3-hour dev stream. That actually sounds fun.
It does sound fun. Yeah. Maybe when we get a little bit later in the dev stream cycle, we can also, and this will happen. You guys will notice for those who are on this adventure for us for the first time or have seen dev streams before, we're gonna do these relatively regularly. So you're gonna get one every couple weeks or so. We'll release a dev diary and then we'll have a dev stream on the dev diary topic. And as we get closer and closer to release, you'll start seeing more footage, more new stuff, and eventually we'll actually play the game a little bit live. In the beginning, we really like to focus in on answering questions and deep diving on topics because there's so many questions out there. As we've talked about a lot of things, we'll get into actually, you know, playing the game live with you and showing you things in real time, and you'll watch me be good or bad. It's always funny. Every project I'm on, I always get the, you know, curiosity on how I can handle difficult situations, and I hold my own okay in Jagged Alliance 3. I think I'll be able to play okay. So we'll get there. So we're gonna go ahead and bring Pavel back on. We have a lot of questions to answer. I think Pavel's gonna be standing because they only have one seat up there. So
You get the seat. Oh,
you
we'll
get the
both.
seat. Or both stand. So we'll have Pavel back here and we're going to take some questions. So I'm going to first try to grab a few questions from our community site, our forums. And again, if you haven't seen or read the dev diaries, it's community.jaggedalliance.com. I really encourage you to go join our community and get plugged in. That's where you're going to get all the information about the game. That's where you're going to get the dev diaries and know when the streams are coming up. And that's definitely where you can ask your questions. I know everyone was talking about Boyan with an I earlier because he was the author of this last dev stream. He answered some questions pardon me, already in chat there on the forums, but we also try to answer them live for the people that aren't reading. So we always try to grab a few questions from that post every single time. So I really encourage you to get plugged into our community there. You'll be able to stay in tuned. So let's see. The first one I want to grab. I thought this is a good question actually. So Lufgahosko asks, or he had a longer post, but I distilled it down to 2 things. So in JA2, a character's leveling up wasn't a regular experience, with the average merc capable of going a long time without seeing one. So they're asking, will that be the case in Jagged Alliance 3, or will leveling be as distance as hard to earn as before? You know, what is the cadence or what is the frequency of your merc leveling up?
So it's a bit faster than Jagged Alliance 2, and you can get a merc from level 1 to level 10 in a really long playthrough. If you go around and do everything in the world, you'll definitely be able, but it's a rare occurrence to get to level 10. However, it does depend on the size and number of mercenaries you play around with. If you start with small number of mercenaries, since experience is based on the number of enemies you defeat, and it's not shared base, it's shared within the pool of the squad. You can start with small squad and go around with a fewer mercenaries, which is going to be tough, and they're gonna get more experience. So
Yeah.
it depends on the play style. It's a bit faster in Jagged Alliance too, but not by much.
Yeah, I feel like also it's important to separate that leveling up is not the only way your mercs progress. So like we were talking about before, your stats can be grown through training or through finding items in the game or by doing actions. So there's a couple different ways that your mercs can get stronger. I mean, not always strong. There's different ways that they impact your playthroughs, but different ways those improve. I saw another question about the t-shirts. Game Inclusive asked more important question: where can I get one of those shirts? So I have some good news for you. The next dev stream, which will be in 2-ish weeks, 3 weeks, we are going to give away a handful of shirts. I'm not sure how many, but we're going to be giving away a handful of shirts. People keep on, yeah, there you go. Pavel the model. Wait, is he my right or left? Let's see. Yes, look at that. This way. Pavel the model over here. If you would like to get your hands on an excellent Jagged Alliance 3 t-shirt, Pavel here is showing off. We will have those on our next dev stream available as a free giveaway. We may also do a sale of them. We'll see. It really kind of depends on demand. Right now, we don't have active intentions to make them available for sale on our merch store, but you know, it's if the audience demands, you never know. So we'll see how that goes. Oh, see, Pavel Colbert wants you to. Will you please do a turn for us, please? Can you turn? Look at that. Only quality content here on THU Nordic. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen.
Of course.
Only quality content. The best of the models. All right, so let's go into another other questions from the forums here. I'm going to grab one more and then I'll switch to questions on the stream. Oh, actually, this is a good one because everyone keeps on asking about the IMP character creator, right? We are going to have the character creator. You are going to be able to create your own merc, and you're going to get the. We'll talk about that in more detail later, but there's going to be the personality profile, blah blah blah. You're going to love it. Bloodcat said, "Does the IMP creator also have talent points?" And maybe you want to answer that for us, Boyan.
So the IMP character doesn't have his own unique talent, but he does get more traits. So you can get 2 specialties, which is a bit more unique. You can make him like a night combat specialist with stealth trait, which is quite unique in its own way.
Yeah, I think it allows us to not project onto the character you create what kind of uniqueness element that you're playing as your fantasy, but also does allow you based on your. And by the way, yes, the questions on the IMP creator are entertaining. I'll say there's a range of questions on there. I think we did some research. We had some lulls. There's stuff on it, so I think you'll like that. But yeah, I think coordinator, the idea was to add that element of uniqueness while not limiting the player to a preset set of choices. So hopefully you'll find that compromise works well. Let me go back to my chat questions here and see if I can grab a few that I haven't answered yet. Corgan X asks, how moddable will the mercs be? We're not talking about modding yet. It is something we know it's super important to our community, and it is something that we are very much aware of, and we've talked about quite a bit during development. I don't think we're quite ready yet to talk about what modding may or may not support, but it is something that is on the forefront of our minds. We know it's a big aspect of Jagged Alliance, and I will say there will be some level of modding support that you'll be able to leverage. But getting into the details of that, we'll talk about a little bit later. Let's see here. Spine Duke, are you okay? We talked about that already. Oh, here's a question that I don't know if we can answer. So I'll let Pavel make the decision on whether we want to tease this or not. Or I could make it, but I'll let you guys decide. So Oleg asks, is there an arms dealer like in Jagged Alliance 3, like the Irish guy from Deadly Games that kept yelling at me, "You thieving bastard"? Unforgettable. So do we have like kind of those personalities?
Oh, we have a lot of personalities. We have a lot of different personalities in the game. If it's specifically about a merchant, should we say if it's not yet?
There's different things you can talk about in the game.
Yeah, they're
About a particular granny.
Well, let me take it then. There are going to be NPCs that you meet throughout your experiences and your adventures, and they're going to be able to provide different benefits for you based on what you can provide to them. I don't want to go into detail about what those different transactions can look like and how permanent or mobile or whatever they may be. There's a lot of elements that are involved in that. I think those are things we're going to dive into deeper. But I will say that a lot of the people that you meet in the world of Grand Chien have dynamic personalities that are voiced. Yes, Larry Wolfa, that are voiced, and that some are really entertaining. And I'll also say that the way that those characters react to you depends on the mercenaries you have with you. And there are some hilarious combinations. And this is, again, when Boyan was talking about playing Jagged Alliance 2 every year, we wanted to capture that sense of, man, what happens if I take these guys on my adventure and what does the world do? So, I mean, it's there's a lot of our poor writing team, but there's a lot of dynamic content that is based on how you're doing stuff. So I think you'll enjoy that aspect. All right, got like 5 or 6 minutes left. Let's see what else we can grab here from the questions. Jimmy Lee from Morker. I don't know if you can see this, guys, but he was asking, what is the white grenade beside the rifle in my profile?
It's a gas grenade, I think.
That's a gas
It's
grenade.
either a smoke grenade or a tear gas grenade.
It's something that we actually were adding relatively in the last, relatively recently, trying to add different dynamic elements that you can throw into a combat space to change how you move through it. Some of that was based, and I know someone was asking questions about melee combat earlier. We wanted to allow different ways that melee combat could evolve and how you can combine those with different actions you can take. So I think you'll find that the equipment and the choices you can make on what you bring to the field can really evolve how you approach each combat scenario. So yeah, gas grenades, why not?
There we go, sliding into combat again.
It's so easy, right? Yeah, yes, Jimmy, like different types of grenades, with all different types of effects and different ways that you can use them. So super cool. Wearsby asked, will it be blowing up heads or brutal kills?
Yes.
Yes, there will be.
Yes. I think actually someone noticed a headshot earlier and was like, "Whoa, that was pretty." Because I think we have one in one of the videos, which also look better now than they did before. I think that video capturing was done quite a while ago, so it's something we're constantly improving.
Mhm.
Let's see. I think we answered this one before. QB112011 asks, "How does having your own merc in a panic state affect play? Do they just not listen to you and do their own thing to survive?" Maybe a little bit on how we got a lot of questions about panicking and how that works.
Yep.
It works similar to what you said. They will try and do an action on their own. You lose control of them when they're panicked. Usually they try to run and take cover, or alternatively, if they're psycho, they will go and do some attacks, trying to kill whoever's in front of them. So yeah, you lose control of them for a while, and then you regain it back if they're alive.
Yeah.
I see, by the way, a lot of people, and I'm going to just head this off at the pass, a lot of people are asking about release date, and I saw that throughout the stream. We're not talking release date yet. You'll know when we do. It'll be a big deal. We can't answer that question, obviously, so just be aware. But I appreciate and know that we're going to get asked that every single stream, like we always do for every product that we're always doing streams for. And the moment we can tell you, we certainly will. So I will say that something that we really believe in at THQ Nordic is giving our games the best time that they can to mature and grow. And I think that we've really tried, in my opportunities, at least collaborating with Haemimont, we've had a lot of discussions about what iteration time we needed on certain features. We definitely, and much to Pavel and a few others in the production team's nightmarish chagrin, told Boyan and the other Boyan, you know what, let's just try things for a little while. And you're watching production go, what does that mean? But we wanted to give us the time to experiment and evolve mechanics. And there's some decisions that we made, we've talked about before, even when it comes to not showing hit percentage, that went through a number of iterations and experiments to get to a point where we get the Jagged Alliance feel of combat. I can tell you that even though we're not announcing a release date yet, part of that is to make sure that when it goes live, with what we've invested in and poured our heart into, that it's the best version of itself that it can be. So, just be aware that, we're not, I know everyone's like, don't rush it. We're not rushing it. We're giving it its time. And, gaming making is hard. That doesn't always work out. But I think that the team has done a great job, and I think you're going to be really pleased with what you get a chance to play. So, let me grab one or two more. Oh, that's a good question, actually, because I think we can answer that one. Frau Boyan asks, will bullets penetrate materials?
Yes, they will penetrate materials. Like the world has its own stats that's depending on the type of weapon, the caliber, the type of ammo that you're using. It really depends on what you're shooting at. It has different surfaces have different penetration stats, so it will depend a lot. And you could shoot someone through a wall, but it all depends on all of those factors coming together.
And also you should remember, sometimes you may shoot yourself through a wall, which that also can, because friendly fire or civilian friendly fire is definitely a thing, if you miss. It's a comment that we've talked about a bit because and hopefully it's I know it's what everyone wants, but we really are trying to create a gunplay system that brings that experience that people would expect from a true Jagged Alliance game. And that comes with ballistics and trajectory and variability in those systems. It's something that we probably will also improve a lot post-launch, but we really are trying to create those different surfaces and whatever, so that you can make choices that have different types of consequences. I think even in one of our trailers, we showed that some buildings, there's a lot of destructive building in the game. You can actually blow the ceiling out from under someone, or knock them off a balcony with a grenade. So there's a lot of things that even come into how surfaces react to different types of actions that you take, not just gunfire. So that surface system is something that I think is really cool and adds a lot of dynamicism to the combat. Someone also asked, and I get to take this one because it's one of my favorite topics, and everyone knows. Where was it? Olak asked, any word on music, if it's new or remastered from previous iconic music? It's iconic, please keep it. The music is all original. We definitely referenced or listened to the previous games to come up with the soundtrack, but it's all original. It's written by a longtime partner of Haemimont Games, George Strezov, who is an incredibly talented and very gifted composer. We are going to do a dev stream with George and talk to him about the music, because it was quite the journey. It's a very expansive soundtrack recorded live with multiple orchestras and a lot of soloists. I'm honestly extremely proud of the music of the game, and I think you guys are going to really love it. It's awesome. So we'll have a whole stream on that and talk about the music at a later time, and hopefully you guys get super excited about that when it gets there. If you like music stuff, post questions and let us know, and we'll make sure we give it the time that it needs. And by the way, and this is just exposing my guilty pleasure, I happen to listen to the Jagged Alliance 3 soundtrack, and I can, because we get privileges sometimes as developers, but I have the mastered files, and I may or may not listen to them on the regular while I'm at my home office here. So it's pretty great. Let's see if I can grab one more question, and I'll grab a live question. So if anyone wants to throw one more question up on chat, we'll grab one more, and then we are going to call it. I mean, this is is Elliot still an idiot? I don't even know what that means.
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Yes, that's just emphatic yes. Locatron asks, is the game using a skill tree? If yes, how does it work? Are there skill trees? Well, that makes so we answered that a little bit, and it's fine. You got here a little bit later. I would read the dev diary. The dev diary, which is on our website, community.jaggedalliance.com, goes through all that we covered today. We're also going to post this to YouTube, and you'll also be able to watch the VOD here, so you can go through those answers as well. I will say that there's not a skill tree in the way that you're thinking. We do have a perk system that has different tiers to it to a certain degree based on your stats. It's relatively complex with a lot of synergy between stats and perks that work together, but it's not a skill unlock where you unlock one thing and it branches out, you unlock thing and it branches out. It's more based on the talents and capabilities of your merc, allowing you to take different perks as you unlock different perk points. So it's a really simplified version of the answer. Sorry, Boyan, I thought I'd just spit that out real quick, and then you can read more and get more information there. Boyan and Pavel, we made it through stream number 1. What'd you think?
It's very fun. I just have one question. Brad, what happens in your home office when I would say Zulu, when the Jagged Alliance free combat music begins? Is it something like the Doom music?
Well, usually when I'm working, I don't play the combat tracks because they would make me like this the whole time. I'm a little more chill because got to vibe a little bit while you're trying to think through the hard problems. But yes, when a combat track hits, it's usually like, oh gosh, turn my thing down.
All right.
Yeah, actually, my favorite, to answer that question, some of my favorite stuff, and this is a little bit of a preview for those that are music fans, we got this really awesome South African choir group that did a number of tracks with in collaboration with George. Some of it's based on South African music, and some of it's based on George's genius, and then there's some arrangements on top of it, and like that stuff is just so gorgeous and so immersive, and I love how it adds that extra level of flavor into the soundtrack. And I listen to those quite a bit. They're awesome, just vibe tracks when you're just trying to get some work done, just to really kind of set the mood. So combat tracks, maybe if I'm playing a shooter, but not when I'm trying to write emails and review documents. So a little bit different. Excellent, everybody. Thank you so much for joining our stream. As we said, we'll be back in a few weeks. You can plug in on Discord. We have a Discord channel. We engage with people all the time on Discord and have a lot of fun there. You can talk to, this way, I think. You can talk to both of these awesome gentlemen there. Maybe Pavel will post some model photos of the shirt ahead of our upcoming next dev stream. We also have our community site, again, community.jaggedalliance.com. It's where we post all of our dev diaries. We also engage Boyan with an I went and answered, I think, every question that was asked on him yesterday, which was awesome. So if you want some questions answered, I would definitely post on our dev diaries there, and you're most certainly going to get a response. And then we're going to be back here in about 2 or 3 weeks talking with you again. I don't know, or I'm not going to announce what the topic is for the next. I do actually know. I have the list. I can pull it up. But you'll see what the next dev diary topic is, and the stream will be on that topic. And then, like I said, we're going to do a t-shirt giveaway. We're going to give away a few t-shirts to some lucky people. So get on our social and plugged in so you don't miss that. And we really appreciate you all joining us on this journey with Jagged Alliance. In about 2 to 3 weeks, Wigan. I don't want to commit to the exact date because there's some factors that can move it around, like deadlines on the team or whatever. But right now, it's going to be in 2 or 3 weeks. That's what we're pegging. So not too long. It's gonna be pretty soon. Boyan, thank you for joining us. Pavel, thank you so much. And everyone, we will see you next time. Have a great afternoon or evening wherever you're at, and cheers to all of you. Take care.
Bye.
Have a great time, guys. Bye bye.